Hi guys, welcome to Bros.Gaming. My name is Brandon. Today we are returning to the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! Potentially for the very last time. This vlog covers my 1 year anniversary of returning to the game and is the season finale of Let's Play Yu-Gi-Oh!
Is a pendulum card.
The landscape of Yugioh changed so much since I was a kid. I managed to pull a ghost red. Game 2 in week 1 was against, I'll describe it as a huge deck.
Probably the stupidest idea I ever had.
Chose a dark edition and
He sold it to me.
one of the best tools I've had since coming back to Yugioh. And it's so cool to see what element of your deck looks like in the one. This card that I had was the best card in my deck because it was the ending of puzzles. Using a deck that I've never played with before. There's something wrong with my dark magician deck. The reason I'm making this video is because I've decided to enter a league to want and do a coming with it.
If you've been following the channel, you may have noticed that I like Yu-Gi-Oh! This game was instrumental in my childhood and was one of my greatest loves and passions, but this led to me being a target for being bullied, and I gave up on playing and collecting Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards until a few years ago. I started collecting again, and it was an incredible feeling of being able to let go of my past and enjoy the things that I love once again. But there was a lot more challenges that I had to face. I couldn't just start collecting cards again to confront my past and really let go of it. I had to return to the game. A little more than over a year ago, I returned to playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I looked up my nearest gaming shop, which just so happened to be Grand J Games. And if you've been following the series, well, the rest is history. As this series was, at its core, about confronting my past, the most fitting thing to end this season of Let's Play Yu-Gi-Oh! Is to look back and go over the things that I've learned this year in returning to the game. And so that I can try and potentially help people who are also making that decision in returning to the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! But that's not the only reason I returned. There is a reason that this channel is called Bros.Gaming. I started this channel with my friend Ethan to play video games and relive nostalgia. However, just as the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series began, Ethan had an accident. Due to an unexpected disaster of Ethan attempting to feed his cat, Ethan ended up in the Shadow Realm. And I haven't been able to save him until now. Instead of winning a card game against a billionaire with a cursed magical artifact, It turns out that I had to perform a ritual to bring him back home. And it just so happens that this ritual coincides with all the goals that I had for myself in playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Again. One of my goals, as well as the goals for the ritual, is to play at 3 different local card shops, which I have. I had to play an official Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament, I had to play in a different state, and I had to top a local. The only thing left now is to compete at a regional tournament. With the meta right now being more diverse and more complex than ever, this is the best time for me to go over everything that I've learned in playing the game to try and best help myself in the regional tournament, which is taking place at Grand J Games. I also have one more thing I want to share with you. I'm going to need all the help that I can get in this regional, so I do need to unlock the powers of the ancient past and rebuild the Millennium Puzzle. Now, this was something that I was saving for a very special occasion.
Hey, we were saving that! For today, I guarantee it.
And I couldn't think of anything better than celebrating my 1-year anniversary of returning to the game and celebrating this with you. There have been a lot of lessons that I've learned in returning to Yu-Gi-Oh! But I think the best way to go about going over what I have learned is to look back at where I first started. I think the most important thing I had to learn about returning to Yu-Gi-Oh! Was learning to play the game again. When I played as a kid, it was the literal definition of schoolyard Yu-Gi-Oh! In that we carried around decks with lacquer bands, made up the rules because the rules didn't matter. We just had shiny cardboard and it was fun. The game now is very, very different, with literally thousands of cards and a ton more game mechanics that have been introduced. Actually, how many cards are there now? Oh, fuck. There's 11,145 cards now in Yu-Gi-Oh! Jesus. I had to learn from scratch what a synchro card was, what an XE's card was, and what a link card was. I had to learn about the rules, timing, flow of cards, and a whole lot more. On the surface, Yu-Gi-Oh! Does seem like a complex game, but in truth, it's pretty complex. Incidentally, just as I wanted to start learning about Yu-Gi-Oh! Again, Master Duel released. I'd sunk in a lot of hours into Master Duel learning how to play the game again, and it was genuinely a very helpful tool because there's a lot of flow and things that happen in a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game, and knowing about timings and when you can activate cards and how they work and how they interact with the opponent. So Master Duel I found is really handy because it's visual, it's right in your face, and it is, for me personally, was the best way to learn how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Again. And the daunting thing, but the brilliant thing about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is because there is 11,145 cards and 25 years that this game has been out, there is so much for you to choose from in what you want to play. You can play such things as dinosaurs, dragons, Vikings, pirates, samurai, vampires, rabbits, birds, and whatever the fuck an Ajama card is. But the best thing I recommend about returning to the game, because there is a lot to take in, there are so many handy resources out there, and most of them are on YouTube. And that's exactly what I did. I went straight to YouTube. I looked up all the YouTube content creators. I think this is a brilliant tool for anyone that wants to learn how to play the game, because if you want help, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community is there to help you. As a more recent example, I've been wanting to learn how dinosaur decks work, so I watched a really handy tutorial from Stupid Web Yu-Gi-Oh! Who broke down exactly how the dinosaur deck core works. Even that as an example, I believe that there's a lot of help out there when it comes to playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And YouTube is a great place to learn. It is always a great thing to do to support your YouTube content creators. After gaining some confidence in learning how to play the basics, I decided to take the plunge and play with people in real life. And I registered to my first ever Yu-Gi-Oh! Local tournament at Grand J Games. This is when I learnt my very first lesson about the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community. And what I learned was how welcoming the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community can be. I learned the value of kindness from strangers as I was gifted sleeves by our regular Sun Avalon duelist Douglas so I could protect my cards. And I was gifted a Yu-Gi-Oh! Field Center by Jason, the owner of the store. And these were small gestures that meant the world to me and still do. I also very quickly learned that if I was to stand a chance in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! I really needed to improve my Dark Magician deck. In my first local, even though I won at least one game, there was a lot more work to do. I had to save Ethan from the Shadow Realm after all. The next big lesson I learned after a few more weeks of playing the game was how important it is to invest in Yu-Gi-Oh! Staples. And what I mean by Yu-Gi-Oh! Staples, people watching this, you'll know what they are, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Staples, for anyone that doesn't know, are pretty much like the bread and butter that you need for returning to the game. Because there's so many different decks, Yu-Gi-Oh! Staples are cards that can go into most decks that help you interact with the opponents. And the minute that I started journeying that, hey, maybe I need to incorporate some new different cards into the deck, things definitely took a turn for the better. And another thing that I learned was how important it was to learn how to source your Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards. And the best way by doing that is old school but new school at the same time, by trading with your friends. But instead of trading your Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards because, ooh, that one's a shiny dragon, I want it, now there's monetary value involved, because in truth, the people that are playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, most of them are teenagers and adults. And so an unwritten rule of buying cards, at least in Australia, at least in Victoria, a lot of people use TCG Player as a way of valuing their cards, and this makes a difference in trading and sales. And this is not a sponsored bit, but a handy app that I ended up getting was an app called Collector, and what this did was kind of speed up the process of having to Google TCG Player and all that kind of stuff. The app was there, and you can look up whatever cards you want to look up to know their value. And the really handy thing about this app is that it also keeps track of how valuable your own cards are in case I want to trade or sell my cards, and knowing whether or not I should invest and keep them. So Yu-Gi-Oh! Is no longer just a kid's card game. It's a whole whole different world out there when it comes to trading and buying. The next lesson I learned was I returned to Yu-Gi-Oh! At both the best time and scariest time to return. And incidentally, I returned at the dawn of the branded format, and it was a bit of foreshadowing because it ended up informing how I ended up playing Yu-Gi-Oh! From that point onwards. However, when there is a new strong deck out there, more decks start to rise, and admittedly I got pretty burned out from it, so I did end up taking a break. And during the time I took off a mini break of Yu-Gi-Oh!, a really important set release called Power of the Elements, which not only introduced sprites, but Telements, the first Tier 0 era of Yu-Gi-Oh! In about 4 years. And this is when I decided to return. Now, this is going to sound pretty corny, but the next big lesson for me that I learned in returning to Yu-Gi-Oh! Was the power of making friends.
I've been holding in the biggest friendship speech of my life, and now you're going to listen to it.
No, please, have mercy on Johnny Steps.
Now, I can easily talk to you through the camera. This is very easy for me to do this kind of stuff, but in real life I am pretty shy, and if I'm not talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! Or anything like that, I do tend to freeze up and all that kind of stuff, and making friends can be a bit difficult sometimes because of it. Like, I want to make friends, I'm just too shy sometimes. But returning to the game for a second time, there was a new wave of players at Grand J Games on top of the brilliant original crew that welcomed me. This is when I met series regulars Oscar, Harrison, and of course probably someone who's been my biggest guide in returning to the game, Kerem. Kerem has certainly become probably my closest friend in returning to the game, and has definitely guided me through all these metas and all that. And so, as a quick aside to all of this, again, Kerem, if you're watching this, thanks, man. Having just a good bunch of people to play with has really helped build up my own self-confidence. And I know for myself, whenever I play with people, I also try and make sure I am enjoying myself and having a good time and making friends, and because that's what's most important to me. Even though Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a competitive game, you're playing to win. For me, I am playing for fun at the end of the day, and I like meeting new people, so I do like to have a bit of a laugh and a bit of a joke when I'm playing, and I don't really take things as seriously as some people might, and I hope this isn't a bad thing for when I play with people, but I genuinely just like having a good time. Making friends and helping build up my own self-confidence also helped me achieve one of my goals of saving Ethan from the Shadow Realm by entering my first OTS tournament and plenty of games. During this OTS is when I finally perfected my Dark Magician deck, and this was an incredible feeling of returning to the game, learning how to build everything up, and I got it to a point where I was so happy with it. But not everything lasts forever, and this is when I learned probably the hardest lesson about playing the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game is that the meta always changes, and so must your deck. And it was a hard lesson learned because over the next month or so, I watched my Dark Magician deck, which I'd put so much love and attention and care into, crash and burn. It was at that point where I was pretty much almost ready to give up on the deck entirely. However, whenever there's a little bit of bad, there's always a little bit of good. During that time, I learned another lesson, the value of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community. Both Karam and Jacob reached out to help me rebuild the deck. Even though the deck was unsuccessful in my second OTS tournament, I learned a lot more about the game from losing and having to rebuild the deck from scratch. Out of my entire journey of returning to Yu-Gi-Oh!, this was probably the worst time to return to the game because the meta, in truth, was so fucked. Like, I know there are people that like the Telements when it was rampant, but it was f***ed. But this time also presented me my biggest opportunity in returning to Yu-Gi-Oh! I had the chance to play in the Australian Yu-Gi-Oh! Championships in Sydney. This experience was, for me personally, easily my favourite vlog and experience in returning to the game. I got to road trip to Sydney for the first time with Karam and his best friend Hassan. It was the biggest tournament that I'd ever played in, and being there, I got to meet a lot of you during that, and it was so great to meet people who were watching these videos and enjoying them and loving Yu-Gi-Oh! And the atmosphere was incredible. And I said it in that video, and I'm going to say it again, that I never imagined that I could ever experience anything like that playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And that child in me would be livid and would be so excited. And honestly, it was just an incredible experience. After this epic weekend of Yu-Gi-Oh!, I did have to take another break, and not by my own choice. My work-life schedule changed, and also Grand J Games moved to a bigger, better, brand new location, but the times for their local tournaments also changed, which meant that I could no longer attend. I also couldn't attend other local tournaments out of the game shops in Victoria, so Yu-Gi-Oh! Had to go on hold once again. Although during this mini break, I didn't stay too far from the game. I was still keeping up with all the cards that were being released, such as Photon Hypernova, because of course they're releasing branded stuff, so I had to get onto the branded stuff. And this is probably when I learned one of my most recent lessons about returning to Yu-Gi-Oh! Is to play with more than one deck. As much as I love Dark Magician decks, if I want to learn Yu-Gi-Oh! Properly, I can't just stick with one deck. And as much as I love Dark Magicians, they're so dear to my heart, I do have to branch out to other types, and Branded was probably the most easiest deck to transfer to since I was somewhat familiar with it, and I'd played some games in Master Duel, and I knew how some of the mechanics worked because I did have a Branded package in my Magician deck. And of course, Karen, being the absolute legend that he is, lent me his deck for the vlog, and if you saw it, you know that I won my very first local tournament, taking first place, and one step closer to freeing Ethan from the Shadow Realm. It was always something that I wished for but never thought would actually happen, However, luck was on my side that day. For me, returning into Yu-Gi-Oh, I wanted to play Yu-Gi-Oh at all levels. I wanted to play Yu-Gi-Oh at a local level. I wanted to play an official store tournament level. I wanted to play at a regional level, as well as a national level. And I've done all those except for regional. And it just so happens that we are going full circle because the regional tournament is taking place at Grand J Games. And this is Grand J Games' first time hosting a regional tournament for Yu-Gi-Oh! And so no matter what was happening, I of course have to show support for the card shop that gave me my first opportunity in playing the game again. And so I think it's time to build the Millennium Puzzle.
Whew. Okay. I am very nervous about building this. This has literally been sitting in my bookcase forever. There's quite literally covered in dust. And there are no instructions for this. None at all. Oh no, yes there is. I'm lying. Alright, let's open up the Ultimate Gear Millennium Puzzle. So this is going to be a first time thing. Like I said, never opened this before. Ooh, cool. So these are the bits and pieces. I'm sure this is exactly how it looks for Yugi Boy. And there is instructions here at the back. Oh, it says it flyers. Huh. This could take a while. Jacket's off. Alright, let's crack in, shall we? Did not have the foresight to bring pliers. Does it just come out? Or is it making me nervous? Ah, cool. One piece down. You're going in there, my friend. This is going to take a while. But in the meantime, I also thought to do something a bit special with the Ink Bros community by kind of doing like a Ask Me Anything type thing. And a few of you have responded, so I'm going to answer some of those questions whilst I build the Millennium Puzzle. Okay, so Tim Davis asks, I would like to know how to become incredibly handsome like you. Firstly, no, I'm not. Secondly, do you genuinely think I'm handsome? Or is it because I'm a Yu-Gi-Oh player? Kerem asks, I was wondering if you're planning to sell your ultimate Albaz. Kerem, the day that I get to Oceanics is the day I'll consider selling my ultimate rare Albaz to you. Though in saying that, if you do have a cold, dare iced coffee, I would also accept that. X Artorius asks, I would like to know what the F a pendulum card is. I can tell you exactly what a pendulum card is. A pendulum card is...
Say the line, Bart!
What the f*** is a pendulum card? Oh my gosh, there's still more of these. Okay, I'll cut back to you once I've opened it all up. Now for the hard part. Actually building the Millennium Puzzle. There's a lot of pieces. And I just realized I probably should have sorted them. Note to self, let's never do a let's build Lego video because this is not how I should have done it. I have no idea what part that is. Good God. What have I done? No, there's too many pieces. Bit of a Millennium Puzzle ASMR. Anyway, wait. Is that it? Maybe. Oh no, this is actually going to stress me out. Why did I choose to do this? Wait, those are two bits put together? This is stressing me out. I haven't even started and this is stressing me out. No. I'm not going to be providing great commentary because I'm too busy having a mild panic attack. Oh, hang on, this might be something. We might have found our first 2 pieces. Yes, we're still on step 1. Yay. What's this thing? Actually, I've forgotten what I'm looking for. Okay, so after having my breakdown, there's good news and there's bad news. Good news is I've following the instructions, I was able to put the pieces together, but it turns out they make other pieces. And there is no instructions from here on out in building the Millennium Puzzle, so I'm on my own. There's the tippy bit, the mini Millennium Puzzle. Oh, that feels like something. Then maybe it is this. Oh, there we go. Maybe let's just keep building from this point, because that's like a definite. Better bloody win regionals for doing this. This is stressing me out. Yeah. Okay, look. I've been literally struggling for hours. I've given up. I'm taking on my advice from earlier in the vlog. I'm looking up a YouTube tutorial. I'm sure the Pharaoh will be fine that I'm looking up a YouTube tutorial rather than building this through my gut. I'm sure there'll be no consequences. But I'm kind of finally doing this. I missed something. So I've done a thing where I've sorted out all the pieces so I can actually understand what I'm doing now. Probably should have done it from the start. Oh, that fits smooth. That's some good clicking. Oh, 28. Oh, there. No, my phone died. No, I can do this. No, I'm charging my phone. What does this? Oh, no, I was just guessing that. I am a genius. Who needs YouTube tutorials? Me, still. I'm an idiot. I could just check the laptop. Which one's piece 30? Why did I move the pieces? Oh, that's it. Oh, that felt smooth. Yes. Come on, click in there, you punk. Oh, that's satisfying click. I would not have been able to do this without the instructions. Like, honestly. No wonder this took Yugioh 8 years to build this. Oh yeah, that's nice. No, it's almost like the Pharaoh doesn't want me to build this. It's almost like I'm not the chosen one. I am the chosen one. Oh yeah, clicks in nice. Okay, I'm gonna see if we do the rest of this without looking at the thing. Oh yeah, in the bottom of it. Oh yeah, there's the tippy tip. We're near the end. Just the eye now. Should be the last bit. Yes! Alright, last bit. No. You are kidding. Okay, looks like I'm missing the last part of the Millennium Puzzle. I mean, look. I tried. Maybe it just wasn't meant to be. Sure hope this doesn't affect things in the regionals. So in today's regional tournament, I will be running a branded deck. And as a legacy player, weirdly this deck feels so similar or close to how it felt playing Yugioh back when I was younger, when all the cards were scary looking and cool art and big boss monsters, and even though it's a very new archetype and a very modern deck, it feels so close to how it used to be as a Yugioh player, so I enjoy this deck so much. And with recent support being released in Photon Hypernova, and of course Cyberstorm Access, this deck is so much more better than it used to be, and has also been a bit of a learning curve for me to learn how branded plays, because another thing that I've learned about Yu-Gi-Oh, and as I mentioned about Yu-Gi-Oh, because the meta changes, because the cards change, even the decks change, and you have to learn how to play them. And just when I got used to playing branded and winning my first local, branded changed once again, and I had to learn how to play it all over again. And so, with the support being released in Photon Hypernova and Cyberstorm Access,
and plenty of practice with the deck, this is my new deck list. So the deck list is relatively straightforward for a branded deck. This is pretty much what a branded deck looks like. Post Cyberstorm access with your 3 Albaz, your 3 Alubas, 2 Cartesias, and all the other cards that go along with it. The only kind of changes that I made personally for me is I chucked in a second Guiding Quem into the deck. Firstly, because I feel like she's a great starter, and having an extra starter is always great in the deck. And 2, come on, she's a cool looking card. I had to chuck her in. As you can also see, I'm running Super Poly based on the games that I practiced with. Super Poly has been so handy in terms of breaking boards, so of course I had to chuck in a Super Poly package there. And of course in the main I do run the Gamma package. So as you can see, there's also an Expulsion package in there, but because I don't have the money to have a gimmick puppet, I'm using Ra's Disciple instead, as well as Jinzo for your Trap Tricks matchups, and anti-spells there because it's great against Super Heavy Samurai, as well as a lot of other decks that rely on spells, including branded. So if I'm ever in a branded matchup, anti-spell does wonders. And same thing goes with Dimensional Barrier. You don't often see Dimensional Barrier on the side of a branded deck, but because it interacts so well with Kashtira, Pearly, Super Heavy Samurai, and any deck that really relies on the extra deck, it's a great card to have. And of course, my favorite card in the Yu-Gi-Oh card game, Dragoon, is still there, which means that Dark Magician is still in the deck. I'm never going to let this guy go in a branded deck. I know that you can cut him out for space, but I love Dragoon too much. He saved my ass way too many times in the year I've been back, and I'm not getting rid of him anytime soon. So upon arriving at Grand J Games, I was really happy to see all the regulars that I hadn't seen in months, and I honestly love the crowd at Grand J Games. And of course, being the regionals, there was at least 95, 96 players, and so this is easily the most amount of players I'd seen at Grand J Games. And no matter what happens today, win or lose, I'm just really excited to be a part of Grand J Games history and this exciting tournament. What are we cooking today, Chef?
Gunkins.
Gunkins. You got the whole sushi ship thing going on. I'm hoping everyone can appreciate your cooking today.
Yes,
is this your first regional, guys?
Yes, it's the first.
How do you feel?
Oh, I am terrified.
Terrified?
And excited.
You feel like subscribe, yeah. Do you feel like you're prepared?
I hope so, yes.
My first game was against Oscar and his Super Heavy Samurai deck. Now, Super Heavy Samurai, I only was able to practice against it at least maybe 2 or 3 times beforehand, and in those 2 or 3 times, me being a dummy, I really didn't understand where the weaknesses of the deck were, and the boards that they can make are incredibly hard to break through. And so, again, calling back on the lessons that I've learned over the year, I decided before the regional to do a lot of research in working out the weaknesses of each of the main decks going into the tournament. And so I knew where I needed to interact with the Super Heavy Samurai in order to stall them. And in the first turn, I was able to Cypher Gamma his Scarecrow, which did stall Oscar for a good bit, and I had a great chance of potentially making the comeback. But Oscar is a very smart player and was able to play through it. And unfortunately, my first game of the regionals, I lost, with both games being a loss. Even though it was a loss, I was able to quickly recognize where I was going wrong with how I was playing, because admittedly I did misplay in a few sections. There was definitely cards I forgot to activate when they could have been activated, such as Quem. I forgot to activate her effect sometimes when I really needed it. And so I am reminded again to understand how my cards work, and I knew going forward throughout the day I needed to remember her effects as well as when to go off with other effects in the game. And despite all of that, I was having so much fun. Like, even though it was a loss, I knew going into this experience that even though it was a regionals and that there would be a level of seriousness going into it, I wanted to enjoy myself. And because it's harder for me now to come back and play the game, and this is a great opportunity for me. And so I knew, even though they lost, I had a really great time doing Oscar. Game 2 was against Alexander and his Punk Pride deck. Now, this is a deck I was not prepared for, had not practiced for, and honestly, that was such a cool combination of cards. You know, the new Pride cards from the Photon Hypernova and Cyber Axis sets. Most of the duel, I was just in awe of how the cards kind of work together, and honestly, I'm such a nerd for this, but even though I knew I was losing and I was trying my hardest, I was just having fun with it, and so was Alex, and I think that was a great experience. Again, even though this game ended up being a loss for me again, I was just having way too much fun with it, and playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Honestly, it's such a fun experience, and these opportunities, like playing regionals, getting to meet new people, like Oscar, like Alex, like the people I'm going to be playing with today, honestly, it's such a rewarding experience. And again, what a great deck to play against, and such a cool name, Punk Pride. And the deck was also very high rarity, so I made sure to get it on camera. It seems that the regionals are a great day for cooking. Not only did we have a chef running around with his sushi deck, but people were coming up with great combinations for deck types. My next game was against Tim and his Buster branded deck. As soon as I saw Buster Bladers on the field, I was like, oh my god, Buster Blader, like holy shit. Like, Buster Bladers are such an old archetype for Yu-Gi-Oh! That of course have a bit more modern support, but seeing that in combination with branded, like, wow. It was a pseudo kind of matchup with brandeds versus brandeds with the element of Buster Blader in it, and I had to quickly learn how modern Buster Bladers worked in order for me to be able to win this one. But luck was on my side, and I was able to learn the strategies behind the Buster Bladers, and because I know intrinsically how brandeds work, I was able to know his weaknesses, which means I have my first game win on the board. Once again, absolutely incredible. And I wish I had more of the play-by-play, but I was just too busy geeking out. I was going into this expecting some meta decks, which I did encounter and did see people playing on the day, but for me it's a lot more fun coming across these really cool deck combinations that I have, as well as new players I've never met before. And honestly, this is turning out to be such a great day. So game 4 kind of took a bit of a turn in that I was versing a deck that is in the meta, but I didn't really side for. Labyrinth. Yay! I was versing Kevin and his Labyrinth deck. But me being me, I only really had 2 cards that I could rely on in order to try and get around this with my Harvey's Feather Duster and Jinzo. 2 sides that I could rely on. And did I see them? And you guessed it, I lost.
Well, love.
So this one was a bit more of a serious duel than the previous ones, but again, I just would not take the losses for losses today, and I didn't feel like there were losses. Granted, my branded deck was performing a lot better in the last episode, and it was also a bit different cards I was versing. I can't be upset. Like, I'm getting to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Again after all this time and versing all these different types of decks, and in this regional I'm too busy geeking out, having so much fun playing with everyone. But game 5 took a dark turn. Game 5, I was versing f***ing the Wonderies. And this For Wonderies deck was being piloted by Robert. And I really appreciate versing Robert. He is such a smart player, and I versed him a few times at Grand J Games. And even though I've been playing this for a year, I still make mistakes, and he's so incredibly understanding and makes suggestions and stuff post games and what I could have done. And also likes to keep me up to date with rules, such as new rules like changing the card sleeves because they no longer accept bigger sleeves. You have to have like Japanese sleeves or something like that. So I always appreciate versing Robert. I really enjoy playing against him, but Flu does what Flu does, and it messed me up bad. And even though Wind Barrier statue is gone, turns out there's another barrier statue that they can use in the water one. F me. Maybe they should just ban all the statues and just be done with it. And on the topic of needing to know how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! A bit better, the biggest thing that I've learned, especially in this tournament, is the final lesson I kind of learned in that as much as you can learn how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And know your deck inside out, at which this point I did, and that I'm a very competent branded player. What's more important than that is knowing how your opponent's decks work. And this is, again, where research comes into it, and knowing the bigger decks out there, how they work and what their weaknesses are. And Flu is a deck that I do keep coming up against, and in truth, I'm just not familiar enough with it, and I kept making misplays in that I potentially could have won if I knew how Flu worked. And there were plenty of times where I tried to do things with my cards, forgetting that M-Pen has special effects that prevent me from using my special summon monsters. And guess what? Special summoning happens a lot with Branded, so yay! So even though Robert's game was a loss, and it was against Flu Wonderies, it was again a very good reminder of one of the bigger lessons that I learned coming back into the game, and that I do strongly suggest to everyone, is to not only know your own deck, but to know other decks as well. And my second last game of the regional tournaments was against Corey, and he was running a Sword Soul deck. Now Corey I've versed a few times on the channel previously. He's been running agents, and I've had such incredible duels with him.
It's game, dude.
Isn't?
Yeah, punishment. Yeah, I think it's the best I could do.
Are you sure you don't need to play through anything? Are you sure?
Yeah, from what I understand.
Because I'm going to be fair here. Like, I want you to. If
so
you
what
do have a
does
way.
he do again?
So he has in the game, but I don't have a card discard.
Down the gate, you can't pop anymore. He's got 3,000.
3,000.
I'm going to move to battle.
Interesting.
Hyperion to your Dark Dragoon.
What happens there?
So, any battle damage you take from battles involving your fairy monsters is also inflicted to your opponent. Take 900.
What happens now?
It's just a draw.
And this duel was no exception. I was able to take the first round with my branded deck, but he did win the second round, and so as always the final round was super intense. But again, as always, Corey is such an amazing person to play against, and I love duels that go back and forth. I hate duels that have like 20 negates and you can't do anything. I love the duels where I can do something, my opponent does something, I can do something, my opponent does something. It's a back and forth, it's like a tennis match, and it's so fun. And we're just cracking jokes and enjoying ourselves. And unfortunately this ended up being another loss on the board, and this is a very close loss once again, but I am so happy playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Again. And these are the duels that remind me why I love the game so much. And so the final game of Season 1 of Let's Play Yu-Gi-Oh! Was against Sam and his branded Runic deck. Both decks I'd versed before in the channel, of course, me being running a branded deck, as well as playing against Runic before, as you've seen in the past, really f***ing up. And so I was very nervous going into this, wondering what that kind of matchup would look like. But again, an incredible duel, an incredible one. And again, super friendly and just having a laugh and just enjoying what we're doing. And at the end of the day, everyone's tired, but we're all just enjoying ourselves and playing the game. And this was a pretty intense duel, and after all, it was pretty much a mirror match excluding the Runic package. He was able to take game 1, but game 2 I knew because I was versing Branded, I had to do something to try and lock him out of his fusions. So I sided in my Dimensional Barriers, Anti-Spell, and of course Branded Expulsion. I totally get why this card is getting banned, and this is the only time that I ever use it, and it's definitely the last time I'm going to use it. I was able to set up not only Branded Expulsion, but as well as the new Albion Sanctifier. With Branded Expulsion, I was able to put Ra on his side of the field. Anytime I destroyed Ra, I was able to bring it back using Sanctifier, so it was a messed up loop that I did. However, Runic also has some great recoverability, and so what ended up happening is that final game I won because we went to time, and so the final game of the series was a draw. Even though this looks pretty bad on the scoreboard, this was genuinely one of the most fun experiences I've had playing the game. Seeing so many people at Grand J Games, which is my home for playing Yu-Gi-Oh, and seeing all these incredible people playing against incredible decks, seeing my friends there, it was such a great day and such an amazing experience. And even though I didn't win as much, I feel like this is a great experience to wrap up this season of Let's Play Yu-Gi-Oh! I've had an incredible experience returning to Yu-Gi-Oh! And just because this season of Let's Play Yu-Gi-Oh! Is finishing, doesn't mean that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is over for me. I'll still be playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I'll still be going to all my local tournaments and collecting cards. This has been way too much fun and such a rewarding experience for me. And I've come a long way since returning to the game. Not just as a player, but also as a person. This series has helped me a lot with my own self-confidence and letting go of the past. I can now fully embrace the things that I love, no matter what anybody says. And there is one last thing to do. Hey Ethan, are you back from the Shadow Realm?
Yep.
Cool. Thank you so much for supporting the series. Don't click away just yet. If you want us to keep making Yu-Gi-Oh! Content for the channel, as well as potentially making another season of Let's Play Yu-Gi-Oh!, please show us your support. The biggest way of showing us that you want us to continue doing the series is by commenting below and helping us achieve our goal for this video. This video, we want to at least achieve 100 likes on the video, as well as potentially 2,000 views, which will be the biggest views on the channel. But that kind of love will show us that you definitely want us to keep going with the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. A lot of work has gone into it, and I have to thank so many people for supporting me. But the only people that are going to help us keep making the series is you. A massive shout out to Ethan, who is the Silent Ink Bros in this series. He has been so incredibly supportive of this, and even though he doesn't play Yu-Gi-Oh! Himself, he's been really supportive of this vlog series, and he's contributed in a big way for this episode in that he's written the lead guitar for the opening credits. The opening credits, as well as the closing credits, composed and arranged by me based on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Theme, and I do hope you can stick around to listen to it, but also show Ethan some love. And I guess my fellow Yu-Gi-Oh! Enthusiasts, I'll see you when I see you. Got my wallet. It's the final piece. Bit late now. Kind of thought something was going to happen. Well, cool.